Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the International Coaches Roundtable podcast. This week you are with co-hosts Neha and Elia as they are interviewing our special guest, Estes Kessler. Estes is a spiritual and motivational life coach who helps her clients to develop a life map, bring some clarity to it, and develop the confidence and courage to pursue it. This episode takes a couple of different turns, so you're going to want to buckle up and give it a listen. All right, we'll catch you at the table.
Hello, welcome to International Coaches Roundtable podcast. My name is Neha, and I'm a life and law of attraction coach. And as always, at ICR, we believe that every person has a lot of potential and they deserve to have a fulfilling life. Thus, here we are offering new insights, strategies, and techniques to go ahead and unleash your potential. Today, I'm here with Elia, my co-host, and we have our guest, Estee. So let me just request Elia to just tell us more about today's episode.
Yeah, we're really excited. This is a totally different direction that I naturally go in my own work. You know, I work with men. I do a lot of work around anger, emotions, and trying to get to the core root of what's been going on. And, you know, at ST, my understanding is you are a certified spiritual and motivational life coach. So you're tapping into this extra dimension that I know for, at the very least, a lot of men, there is sometimes some difficulty and some resistance to get into. And so I'm super excited to hear about what your work is like and what you're doing. So give us a little bit of a spark note on kind of like, what does today look like for SD? Like, what are you working on right now? Like tell me a bit about life coaching for you in this season.
Well, thank you both for having me here. I'm excited to be here. It's amazing what you both do. Something that I'm currently working on is me and my partner, we're working on creating a platform for people to, I don't know if we're allowed to curse here, so I'm just going to bleep this, but ineffably, don't know how to say that, express themselves and really live in love. And something that you've touched upon and something that we do is co-creating a space for people to be able to really be themselves. Because I think there's a lot of blockages in society with, toxic femininity and toxic masculinity. And something as a spiritual and motivational life coach is sort of like assessing where everyone is and asking them, hey, where are you? What have you got going on for you? And like, let's maximize and capitalize on that, because that's what I believe. Yeah. I'm not someone who's, I definitely reach for the stars, but I would love to know where people are at to really help them move forward with what they can do with what they've got. So that's kind of a little bit of something that we're working on now, and creating, workshops and immersions based on that, and really having a lot of interactions with people, even though it's, remote. We love our Zooming.
We have to love it. Yeah, we have to love it. That's amazing. So this co-creation, I'm curious, because again, this whole spirituality thing, my gut reaction, you're saying co-creating this space. What kind of resistances are you typically coming up against? Like, what are the hurdles? Like, you're trying to meet people where they're at. So I'm assuming you hear a lot about resistance and hurdles and obstacles to engaging with this. So tell me a bit about some of those things that people may be going, whatever, I don't know,
The first thing you even said is co-creating. So a lot of the times, I think it's a misconception for coaching, at least something I believe, is you're here to help heal or help people. I believe really we're a guide for people. It's not that like my advice is the advice, or what I can say to you is something that you have to take. It's why it's called co-creation. It's more of you and I work together to create this amazing space where you feel comfortable and vulnerable. I mean, most of the things that I'm encountering is people feeling they're unable to express themselves. They're unable to speak about their emotions. It's such a taboo, going through emotions. I don't know why, but it is. And if you're able, and most of the time, and everyone has these answers within themselves, right? Most of the time they're able to really assess for themselves what's going on, but they kind of need like a sounding board, right? And a lot of the times, when you talk out your problems, you sort of get to the solution on your own. That's kind of what I love to do, and what we're creating that space for. It's, let's have a group of people that we come together weekly. We hold each other accountable. We create tasks for each other. We talk about how our week's been going. Maybe I heard this in an episode of a podcast the other day. Maybe you're having your duvet days where you just stay under the covers, and people don't talk about that. And I love that. And I said, you know what, that's okay. Maybe you're having a duvet day, and that's perfectly fine. So if you're having a duvet day, own it, talk about it. People are there for each other. I don't believe you're meant to live life alone. I think that's the reason why you have a community, and it's so important. And so I think one of the resistances I find a lot is the opening up, because you're worried about what other people might think, the overthinking, imposter syndrome, fear, anxiety. Oh my God, am I able to teach this because I don't have this going on, but someone in my age group is supposed to have this. So all these like different blockages that I really think are so prevalent, because one of the things that really, I think, exacerbates the issue is also social media, right? And you're seeing other people, other coaches. It's so easy to tap into that. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's a great aspiration and inspiration. But you also have to remember, okay, but it's not about them. It's about you. You live your life for yourself. So I think when you be able to open up and say to someone, hey, why don't you just tell me how you're doing? How are you feeling? It kind of starts and minimizes a little bit of resistance to go, just want to hear where you're at. I think that's really where I start with.
Right. So I'm just curious that, what made you think about being in this industry and, thinking of creating a platform and a safe space for people out there? So is there some backstory which made you really,
A little bit. Yeah, actually.
These are the questions. This is it.
These are all amazing questions. I actually grew up in a relatively spiritual community. And so I was encountering a lot of, I don't really want to say esotericism per se, but a lot of like really channeling, focusing on yourself, really listening to that gut feeling, right? How are you feeling? Checking in with yourself. And I think as I got older and really did a lot of my own work, and something I love are people. And I don't just say that, I genuinely love people. I love their stories and I love problem solving. And so if someone is coming to me with anything, and I sort of love creating and devising strategies. And I'm a big believer in actionable steps, right? Like living life. You'll hear me saying a lot of this bite-sizable slices. So it's like, I was getting a lot of just people, friends, strangers that I would have a conversation with that started opening up about different things within 5 minutes. And I'm so grateful for that. And I would notice and realize and recognize how important it is for people to simply talk to each other. And sometimes it's being that person that steps forward and says, okay, I'm here for you. Is there anything you'd like to talk about? Like, I would love to listen. And I got into it really more recently in the last year, but I say I'm an official coach for the last like few years, because I've traveled a little bit around the world and I would meet people. And I mean, like within 5 minutes, it's like your best friends, you're telling each other everything, you're overcoming a lot of limiting beliefs. And it's a very short time frame of a lot of, dense and amazing energy that kind of just you work through. And so I got inspired from my mentor to really move into this space. I had no idea, by the way, about coaching. Didn't know there was, it was an industry really. I thought a few people did it. I've followed Tony Robbins for a while.
Yeah.
So you hear these people in name dropping, and I was thinking, okay, this is awesome. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be them, but maybe one day. And then I realized it was a really big industry and something that people really do in different levels, right? Everyone has their own niche and specialty. And I really feel compelled to help people. And I love being part of people's journeys, seeing their aha moments. It's selfish in the best way possible, because I love being part of that. And when people have realizations and then you hear that, oh my God, their lives are going in a different direction because of steps they took, and you're a part of that, it's so rewarding, and it also feels so good. And you know that you're helping spread more love. And really an objective of mine is become an embodiment of unconditional love. I definitely felt in my life unloved in different ways and felt like it's always conditional in some way. So I think creating that to be like, I love you, really, I love you. And I'm so proud of you. And like, let's do this together is something that's so important for me. That's kind of, I just jumped into it. I have no idea. I'm still unsure. Some of my naivety, I think, is a good thing. so I kind of work with it.
Yeah. I think that's a powerful skill to have, is the ability to stay leaning into that childlike wonder, right? That you call it naivete, but it's like that desire and curiosity and imagination tied to everything. Because it's so easy. I mean, it is just so easy for most people to get that negative scarcity, destructive mindset that out of 1, 2, 3 experiences that were painful and yet now continually cause more pain, and to be able to dive into that, I'll call it a co-creation kind of thing, but it's the kind of thing where you're going, me and life get to create a positive story together.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean,
That's very cool.
yeah, thank you. And I've always heard this term growing up, YOLO. I'm not an acronyms person always, but I really believe like you have a life to live and you might as well live it the best way you can. I'm not saying that there's not going to be hard moments. I've lived in scarcity even recently and had that mentality, and you dodge, like, it feels like you're dodging bullets sometimes, but I really feel that it's important to create a space for yourself and to create a life that you can do something with it. I mean, it might not be perfect, but it's something damn close to it. You might as well do everything you can to focus on the things you can control. Because like, why not? At the end of my life, I mean, I'd rather look at it and go, at least I did that, you know, as opposed to like, damn, I wish I did that and that and that. And that scares me, you know, showing up as a 100-year-old person and going, did you do all the things you wanted to do? And my answer is like, no. And I'm like, shoot, like, I wish I did. So yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. But okay, so and actually this question is to both of you, right? Because we all are here as a life.
This is I'm a co-host
This
this
is
time
for you.
around. Yeah.
So the question is that, you know, as a normal human being, no one wants to really go through the low phases. But like Elia said, that, you know, a couple of experiences in life, it just gives you unnecessarily those sad emotions, and then you start questioning your own existence at times. So as a coach, what do you think? Like, you know, how could a person just, you know, make sure that they don't get into that phase? Because once you're inside it, it's really difficult to come out. And we all need a lot of courage to come out in the world and just tell them that, okay, I am really suffering right now, you know, and I'm vulnerable. So how do you think, as a normal human being, you got to train your mind from the beginning so that you don't really get in there?
That's a great question.
Do you want to go for it first?
Yeah, please. I mean, unless you have something you're jumping to say, I would love to hear.
No, go right ahead. This is all about you today, and then I'll sneak in at the end. Yeah,
it's about all of us. I love it. Actually, I'm so glad you asked that question. I had an intuitive feeling that this was going to be a question asked today. I don't know why, but it came up. So I'm actually not a believer in avoiding or not going into low emotions. I recently I'll say, got my mojo back, because I was feeling like I was hitting a lot of these lows, and just Martha Beck calls them pockets. No, Martha Beck, apologies. Abraham Hicks calls them pockets. And something Martha Beck talks about that really inspired me is actually letting yourself go through these emotions. I believe there's a difference between thinking your way into an emotional state versus you're feeling something. So you know, when you're feeling a certain way and you start to think of all the rabbit hole thoughts of, oh my God, this is going to get worse and this will affect this. And then you go down that hole. Don't go there if you can. Try not to. But one of the things that helps is, like, if you're feeling sad, it's okay to feel sad. It's better to acknowledge the emotion than try and act as if it doesn't exist, because then it becomes an elephant in the room. So one of the things that I actually love doing is, like I said, bite-sizable slices, is create little moments and feelings for yourself. So what I call them are snow smiles. A little bit of a background on that. I grew up in Southern California. Winter is not a season, okay? Not a season.
No,
Don't know what that is. I think I was in my teens when I first saw snow, because my parents took us to the mountains. And I was like, whoa, this is magical. I also grew up watching Christmas movies, favorite time of year. Something magical about snow, Christmas, that feeling. I think you all can relate.
Yes.
Although people think I'm nuts because I prefer cold to hot, but it's okay. And something that's always stuck with me is every time I think of snow, or I think of little snow flurries or the Christmas season, it genuinely lights me up on the inside. I feel so happy. So what I call it is a snow smile. Basically what it is even if you're feeling low moments, one of the things that I always encourage is to find little things, like you create like a treasure box in your mind, the same way you would have put mementos as a child. It's a mental exercise that you kind of just go, what's something that really, you know, just brings a smile to your face? It could be little. For my friend, it's her engagement ring. She looks at it and she just thinks of possibility, hope, a house, you know, whatever it is. For me, it was snow. For some people, it could be an ice cream you ate yesterday. It doesn't have to be digging deep, like going through childhood traumas and then finding the best, you know, experience you had as a child, because the rest of it was basically a shit show. And sometimes it's just something simple, like maybe you have a colorful pen.
Oh, yes.
Maybe you have a favorite sweater, right? Maybe you have a favorite season. I love tea. So, you know, smelling tea, or if you're a coffee drinker. And I think what I tell a lot of my clients is find those little things that you can put in this like treasure box of yours, right? And when you're feeling in those low moments as a human, it's totally normal. It happens. It could happen every day. It could happen once a week. It might happen once a year. Who knows? But when you're having those little moments, just for a moment, you bring yourself to like a present place of thinking about that. So for me, if it's a snow smile, if I know I'm going into a deep emotion, I'm like, okay, just think of something a little happier, because you're not trying to, as Martha Beck, you're not trying to reverse the speed bullet train. You're just trying to slow it down so you can redirect it. And that's what I really believe in. So it's like, okay, I think of the snow and I start to feel a little bit better. And then I'm thinking, okay, this is good. I'm starting to feel like I can talk myself into a different state, right? Like, move through some of those emotions. And that's what I really encourage for people, is like, just do little things. You're not telling your emotions that they need to get swept under the rug. You're sort of acknowledging them and then saying like, I want to make myself feel just a little bit better. It doesn't have to be like, oh my God, I go from, being really depressed to being the most ecstatic person, but it might just be I'm a little depressed on a scale of 1 to 10 to like 9. And you're sort of just really, it's not even working backwards. It's just slowing that momentum down, because that feeling is not as productive for you, and then finding different ways where you can move that feeling and channel it maybe into something productive, and so a lot of the times it could even be an artistic outlet. I love to doodle. Just give yourself a space, you talk it out. Maybe you're cursing to your pen, maybe you're just, yelling out loud and drawing or something, whatever it is, but you're going through it. And and it's important that we do talk about it and to say those things. And I don't think those ever should be avoided at all. So
no, I think I would completely agree. It's interesting because your strategy of trying to slow it down or redirect, for me, that flies in the face of this weird belief in my head about like authenticity and individuality. And like, maybe I don't know if this is a guy thing or I'm just crazy. Part of me is like, I want to feel the fullest extent of an emotion I possibly can in that moment. Like, there's something to me where like, it's not about slowing it down. Something in me almost wants to speed it up, only because what I've found for myself is it feels like you guys have seen The Lion King, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, at the end, Scar goes down into the fire, and then they're looking around and everything's on fire, and then the rain comes. To me, it's like getting to that space where there's a certain, like, something had to die for me to move through this into a new life. And so when I experience different kinds of emotions, for me, I've had to learn that that's not practical. Let's be fair.
Well, also you have to remember, I think for people, and I would love to make this distinction, is if you're emotionally this aware, you totally, by all means, like go full speed. But if you're not, and people don't know why they're feeling an exorbitant amount of like sadness for something small, I would say just like take a step back.
Yeah, that's a fair,
And it might be a guy thing. I think it's really, I've also found that I want to do it. Like if I want to get through emotion, I'm like, I want to just go all the way, like get out of me.
Yeah.
We're moving through this. I'm never experiencing this again. But I don't think it's always like so natural in different states for people to always go through that. So, but I commend you for that. That's amazing.
Well, and there's great benefit to it, and there's great. I mean, frankly, it's a little reckless, because, but it's for me, it's this reality that on the other side of death, there is life, and the only way for new life to happen is there has to be a loss, and so it's learning how to quickly experience death, grief, and resurrection, and restoration, and how do you go through this cycle as efficiently and effectively as possible. And I don't know if anyone ever gets really great at it, but I think you just get more willing. And
you also become more familiar with yourself, and that's everything.
Yes. So you're no longer going in like, what is happening?
Right. You're not like a headless chicken. You're like, you know what? I'm feeling a certain way, speed it up, and then you find your own direction. You're verifiable Phoenix, by the way.
Yeah. Well, and look, I'll tell you what, that's enough woo to be outside of my skill set here. Tell me, I'm verifiable Phoenix. Do I get what is this?
Well, it's Phoenix is all about from the
Harry
Potter, rebirth from the ashes. So when you say that, it reminds me of, you said there has to be a kind of death, and there is a sense of, and you've all heard this. We've all heard this in the coaching space. Your new life is going to cost you your old one. Your new identity is going to cost your old one. Something has to be lost. Something has to die in order for there to be space for something new to come out of it. And I think it sounds like your approach is a little bit like that, and good for you, because it's not always easy to really internalize that there's something that is going to be lost because it's familiar. The old self is so familiar. What isn't familiar is this new version of what's on the other side. I don't know. You're like, yeah, let's go for it. So great. Let's.
One, it's interesting because depending on the kind of person you're working with, there are people who engage in this process and they've never done it. You know, they're still, in many ways, they're the same person they were in 7th grade. It's just no longer Pokemon cards, right? It's whatever it is. And now when you're inviting them into this, the loss that they have to lose is not only the grief of losing themselves, but acknowledging that they were the cause that they lost maybe the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And that they missed out on it. And so that's why like pushing into this process for me is you kind of have to do it sometimes before people can fully understand what's going on, because once they see the ledge of what they have to accept, there is a lot there that can push somebody back, where they go, nope, I can't admit that to myself. I can't accept that part of it. So when you're asking that kind of question, you know, this is kind of where my head goes, is how do we go? How do we initiate and become familiar with life, death, grieving, and restoration? You know,
I think, everything boils down to a point that, so I personally, I'm very fond of 2 words in the dictionary. And the first is normalization and the second is acceptance. And I think the moment you squeeze in these 2 words in every situation, like if you feel normal about the fact that, okay, I am not great today, okay, and you accept I'm not great today, I think the job is done, right?
Yeah.
Rather than avoiding it or just going ahead and getting another panic attack just because you are not doing great today. So I think, so like personally, I always have these 2 words in my head, acceptance and normalization, and it helps that entire process to be really smooth and easy. Whether you are really taking baby steps or you are really fast paced, then it doesn't matter, whatever for an individual.
And something, Elia, you said earlier was one of the resistances people often are met with is also this idea that of the art of allowance. Yeah. When you allow the fact that you're feeling like whatever today, happy, sad, great, not great, whatever it is, and you move through the day, Neha, as you said, it really, this allowance you're not working against the grain of what's going on. You're working with it. So if you work with it, it moves through you much quicker. I feel like most people are like stopping it because it's shameful or can't feel that way, or like nobody wants to tell you, or you're at work and you're like, smile on my face. Hi, how are you doing today? And you're like, I'm really feeling like shit on the inside. This is where if you allow, you just let things move. It's a current, right? As it runs through you, the world's not going to stop. So might as well flow with it than against it. It's a lot of work to flow against it. That's for sure.
Yeah. You had mentioned earlier that you were raised in a fairly spiritual community, and I'm intrigued. So I was raised in completely and utterly Christian community. I mean, I've been in Christian ministry for the last 10 years and I'm only just recently out. And so when I'm curious is when you say spiritual community, one of the primary concerns within people who are like religious is we're born into structures and we love structures, and then the spiritual community is sort of like throw every structure out, we think, but no, so I'm curious, kind of when you say spiritual community, I'd love to hear more kind of what that experience was, because I feel like it's clearly been very informative, and I want to tell us more about that.
Thank you. Good for you, by the way. I mean, being within or without a structure is really every person. It's individual based. I grew up in a Jewish household, and we studied a lot of Jewish mysticism. If you've heard of Kabbalah, that's really primarily where I was. The teachings with which I was raised, a lot of it is good and evil, like the ego. Since I was a kid, we would talk about that. It's like listening to this voice inside of you, like what it's telling you. And there's a lot of like reflection within that. Doing things for the greater good. Since I was a kid, I've heard consciousness is everything is a phrase that's been literally emblazoned on my brain. So it's like, and I started moving with that. Spirituality, I think one of the things that it's a misconception about, it's like everything is thrown out the window. It's not really that everything goes. It's an understanding and an awareness, consciousness of the world around you, of the people in your life, you know, like that emotional intelligence, like finding empathy with others, seeing people for people, not their actions per se, right? Trying to create that unity, that unification. And spirituality really teaches that. And so growing up in that community was definitely informative for me in many ways. A lot of it I didn't agree with, right? Because I have my own views and I encountered some of my own issues. I'm not a practicing, I don't practice Judaism anymore, but I believe in faiths and what they can do for people. And spirituality is something that allows me to really cultivate this understanding that everything is one. We're all a part of something bigger. Like we're really here to help each other. Like there's nothing good that comes out of creating more distance, right? More separation. It just is, so many problems arise from it. And so I think having that understanding that we are all a part of something together, that togetherness, I think has really impacted me. And it's helped me able to find really that all people are people. You know, it's squashed any type of prejudices, racist beliefs, you know, like anything like that. Because when you do grow up in and I'm sure you've encountered this in a religious environment, and I did grow up in a rather religious environment studying Judaism for years and years, you're told certain things that you may not agree with societally about men, women, whatever, and you're kind of like, wait a minute, but they're people. Don't they all have a soul? Like, don't they have 2 feet and two hands, right? And they have eyes. And I think it's important to like really ask yourself what it all means for you. And so for me, it's just about like, I just want to connect to people on a beneath the surface level, literally, like, and also metaphorically speaking, because like, I don't care what you look like and where you come from. I care what you desire to do, how you feel, and really helping you get somewhere from there, because that's really what matters. And who am I to play like judge and juror of like, you deserve this, you don't. It's not my job. And frankly, leaving all of that behind, you know, creating that space where it's like, there is a God or a universe, whatever you want to call it, a being. And I'd rather leave it up to the universe than me playing that role, taking on that I am God and I'm going to tell you what you deserve. Like, it's so much work. I prefer to like leave it all up to you know, there's like a karmic balance in the world, and just leave it there and just do what you feel good doing, connecting with yourself and others, you know?
I think spirituality is more about, you know, it allows you to connect to your inner self. It is definitely not tied to any behavior or lifestyle. And of course, you know, it's very difficult to understand, but spirituality, it just brings you to a common platform and you understand and you start understanding each other. And yeah, like you said that, you know, I'm like being a law of attraction coach, I have this blind faith in universe. Now that universe could be your God, or it could be that supreme power, whatever it is, but it's about your own belief system. So for me, like spirituality is definitely different from being religious, but at the same time, I still feel that it's all about the same thing. It's all about just, you know, getting to know your true self and just understanding the other person as a human being before you decide based on, you know, caste, color, and whatever you want to just judge the person.
Yeah. So, and even in religion, a lot of the things that we encounter is at the core of it, at the core of religion is really like having faith in something, right? Take away whatever they try to do, or like the church or like Jews or anyone else, Muslims, whatever it is, like at the core of it, it's like having faith in something greater than you. That at its core, however people get to that, is really important. And that's what connects it, right? That's what unifies. Like, you know, we have a faith in something greater than us. That means we're all part of the same thing. That's important. Right.
And I think that existential freedom from having to necessarily be totally and completely in control. But whatever it ends up looking like, there's a gift in that, to be able to reside alongside somebody else and not need to control the way they think about the world. It really allows you, I think, to engage with being a person in a totally different way, when you're not sitting there obsessing over their beliefs and they're not obsessing over yours. And you know what? Some people maybe listen to this going, yeah, but what if some beliefs are wrong? And, and what if what if the system that I'm in actually communicates me ignoring your wrong beliefs is harmful to you, right? And I think there is a truth to, you talked about, you said you're raised in a Jewish mystic community, and there's this old, religious-y joke that's kind of like, there's some convention in Chicago, and they had religious leaders from all different communities coming out, and when they went to their breakouts, they went to the theological breakout, and within 15 minutes they were screaming and yelling, chairs were thrown, men of God were ripping each other's hair out, it was wild. But when they went to the mystic breakout, everybody had sat at the same table, and they all spent time together learning. And I think there is a gift in being able to say, how do you engage? How do you connect? How do you value? Yeah, I think that's beautiful.
I love that. And I will add, for anyone who is listening to that and thinking about beliefs, one of the things recently that has changed my life is reading a book called Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. Whatever your beliefs are, there is something in that book that I think will provide maybe answers, maybe some insight, maybe, conversation starter, food for thought. And I really encourage reading that book because it's a series of 3, and I read book 2. I went backwards in the series. It's just how I roll. But
you just get to read the book you want. Tell us a little bit, because we are heading up against our deadline here, and I want to make sure that if people want to work with you, want to connect with you, that they have a way to do that. So if you can let people know, how do they follow your work? How do they get connected with you? How do they learn how to support your work? Let them know.
I love the way you phrase that. I'm on Instagram, Life with SDK. I think you'll probably have it in some show notes or something.
We absolutely will. Yes.
And I also have an email. It's sdk.co@gmail.com, and I'm on there. So feel free to email me or send me a message. I'd love to hear from people. I really would. And I love being a part of this. So thank you for all of you for co-creating this space.
Yeah. Of course. Well, Neha, is there anything else that we want to send everybody off with before we close the doors on this one?
No, I'm good. I think, and thank you so much, Estee, for giving that insight. And, it's really great to talk about these things and just understanding that eventually, everything is just connected. Like every time I have an episode and then I'm talking to all the coaches, it's like, everyone is talking the same thing. It's just in different languages.
Yes, that's what religions are. That's what people are.
Yes.
All right, that's all we have for this week. Thank you so much for taking time to listen to this episode, and a big thank you to Estes Kessler for coming on and giving us such a great conversation. Now, if you want to get in touch with Estee or keep track of her work, go ahead and check the show notes. All of her contact info will be in there, and you can reach out to her directly. And as always, go ahead and give this a like, a subscribe, a follow. We'd love to get some of your feedback and make sure that we are serving your needs. We'll catch you guys next week.